Hi, everyone. Welcome to another instance of the Boring Development Show. Hi, I'm Fitz. We're going to be picking up, rather, where we left off in the last one, trying to actually get the Hacker News app fully upgraded. And so, Filip, remind me what we did last time and where we left things off.
So, as you know, we left off kind of in a bad state. I mean, we migrated everything to null safety. We upgraded all our dependencies to the latest, and that's as again we should say this is an app that we started kind of randomly playing with in 2018, and it's kind of a mess. So I was really happy that we were able to do this in under 1 hour. But the thing that we have a problem with is the generator. I think you're looking at it now. The generator, no, you're looking at the pub spec. But the generator for the articles, the file that takes JSON from Hacker News and parses it into some Dart object that we can, work with better, that was failing in runtime.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got the code open here now. This article.g.dart is the generated source code that comes from saying, let's try to get something that goes from JSON into this nice little article class that we can just get ID and delete it and type and all this stuff just nicely. But it doesn't work. And so you can see I've kind of gotten a breakpoint here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. The runtime error, and I'm waiting for it to build so we can see it, is somewhat uninformative. It's like undefined behavior, unimplemented error. And we'll see it come up here in a moment. But I was telling Filip before we started recording, I was trying to dive into what's going on here and trying to figure out why is it failing. And I ended up setting a breakpoint and going in because you can see this log message, and it might be the contrast isn't great, but worker created and ready. Fetching. Okay, so we've got this message that is saying we're trying to fetch the articles,
right?
And you dive into that and you find that here's that message. We have this log message, log.find, worker.created, ready, fetching. Mm-hmm. And so I naively was like, okay, that, let's hit continue, is the point at which, let's continue. Let's stop breakpointing and continue. That's the point at which our error happens, right? So we get log message, worker created and ready, fetching, and then we get our unimplemented error, right? And so naturally I was like, okay, worker created and ready, let's set a breakpoint on the next line.
Right.
Seems reasonable, right? So I'm going to restart it. And I'll show you where I ended up with this, because naturally, this is how breakpoints work. We stopped the code right at that line, and I'm going to go into the step into. This is saying, let's go through the actual function calls that are being made here, rather than just skipping over it. Let's go into them and see what's happening. We get into our fetch, and now we're getting kind of into the weeds a little bit. We're interpolating some values, which is kind of interesting. And I'm just going to click through this rather quickly.
Wait. What are we interpolating, actually?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe we can try. Let's go and look at it again. So here we're in the isolate worker that is actually doing the parsing. Okay.
Right.
And
interpolate.
And so what are we, who is string patch?
Exactly, who's string patch?
Oh, this is one of the weeds that I got into. So we came from here. We came from this line. So we are currently within Dart's internals for how to interpolate a variable into a string.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So
right.
the part that says part URL stories.json, that's what's going on with the interpolation, right?
Right, which is kind of interesting, actually. I didn't know that interpolation, and it makes sense, is just a function on the string object.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't know that. That's cool.
So that's kind of neat. So if we're within the middle of interpolating, maybe what we can do is step out of this so that we continue it into actually interesting things.
Yes.
Well, not actually interesting. That was
that was actually interesting, but more to our point, I guess.
Yes. More what we are trying to look at with this error down here. So this one is sending the request, the API request. It builds this URL based on this API endpoint, and then says, I want the top stories.json. So it figures out, I should show that we are waiting on top stories to load.
Right.
So we're looking for the top stories. So this stories type is top. So we build this URL that says, let's fetch the API. Let's give me the JSON that is the top stories.
Mm-hmm.
Let's send off that request to whatever this send port thing is, which I guess is a send port. Okay. And let's see what happens. So this is going to get into the implementation for actually sending this HTTP request. We get into this internal sending. I guess we're already out of it, so I guess it just.
Well, I think the send is actually just sending it to an isolate. So now we're kind of stuck because we have the breakpoints on our main isolate, but I guess the problem is happening on another isolate, and it's a good question whether we can actually well, we definitely can, but it's probably going to be problematic to put breakpoints on a different isolate than the main one, Right.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if this is where one of the Dart tools or the Dart observer might be useful.
Yeah.
That also explains exactly why I ended up in this weird state in this debugger where you go into it and so we've got this completer, which is part of the future library. So we're just waiting for these futures to complete. And as I click into it, you'll notice as it goes through, we're just waiting. We're in this async complete loop. Just, is it complete? Is it complete? Evaluate it. Is it complete? Right. And we just sit here for a while. And it's a list of futures. So we've got to go through each one of them. And then it doesn't have an error. Okay. So then we go to the next. We see if there's any listeners. And we go to the next one. And is it complete? No, it's not complete. And then eventually it just gives me the error. And so this is where I ended up when I was trying to debug it this morning. But if it's on another isolate, that would explain what's happening. Why I didn't see anything.
Right. So you know what? I think the best approach now would be to try and see if we can log from the other isolate. I think that's just just print debug whenever there is a JSON thing from there. So okay, I think we have two options. One of them is the hard one and the correct one, which is actually adding breakpoints to isolates that we are doing, we are creating during this whole, parsing. I think maybe we don't have really the time to figure it out. I think there's
I think I had ended up sort of there. I had put a breakpoint here in the deserialize function, which ought to be run on that isolate, right?
Oh, okay. So I thought that that's not possible, but you proved me wrong. So let's go. Let's try it.
Well, I don't know if it's proving you right or wrong, but
No.
I'm curious what'll happen though.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see it.
So if this doesn't work, then we can go to your suggestion of
Print debugging.
Print debugging.
Yeah.
Maybe in this deserialize function. And so while this is rebuilding, I did what every good developer does, which is I copy pasted the error into Google to see what comes up.
Right.
And I still have that old breakpoint on. And one of the things that came up was that you should double check the spelling and punctuation and spacing on the fields you have in the JSON.
Right.
And so that makes me wonder if something in the data that's returned is different than what was originally expected.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think like one way to do this, or if we find out exactly which part of the JSON, or even just which JSON there is, I think we should just take it into a test, just like, copy paste the whole string that is coming back from Hacker News app to a string in a text file, and then run that test, and that will give us a lot more freedom than to like wait until the app is running, and wait until it's fetched and so on. And just trying to deserialize stuff, Cool. But yeah, so are we now in there? Are we in the breakpoint now? Or
we are in the deserialized breakpoint.
Oh, we are. Cool.
And so this looks like I guess the debug console cleared, so I can't see it, but it looks like one of today's top articles, because we've got this is a tokenized list of things in the JSON, or our list of tokens in the JSON. So we have by is this username, we have this many descendants, this is the ID of the article, so that this is the beginning of the serialization, which is I think this is about where we should expect the error to happen.
Right.
I guess I should have stepped over that instead of into. I don't care about seeing what the iterator gets.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're doing here is, and this is generated code, right? So we didn't write this code. We asked for this code to appear for us. And so that's why we're having to actually read it and interpret it. So we're going through each one of the keys in this field, and this is where some of that auto generation comes in. We're saying for the ID, which is something that came from this article class.
Right.
Let's interpret it as an int. Deleted is a nullable bool, right, which comes from the article. The article.dart we did write.
Yes.
And so it's pulling these types from there to try to cast each of these fields to the right thing.
Right.
Each and every one.
And so, and you're saying that this is the first, like this fails on the first article in the list of top stories, for example, or does it only happen? Yeah, go ahead.
It says that it fails. It doesn't know how to interpret the message that is a list of articles, and that's the error.
Oh.
And trying to see if we can, at what point I guess we're just trying to find
Okay.
descendants is what we're trying to find. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay. So so it kind of goes through the JSON file. Okay, the tokens, and that's about where it fails with something like what you're saying, a list of articles.
Yeah, so maybe I'll come out of that. We're deserializing. So it's got this JSON string and it's returning that article. So see here, here's that full JSON string, but it's mapped it into an actual article, which let's see. And this is that string you would recommend copying into a test.
Yes, if it fails on it, but it looks like this one doesn't.
It might be okay, yeah, because it's got like the URL into a string, the title. This one seems okay.
Wow, we're really in the weeds there.
Oh yeah, now we've popped out back into the future completing.
Okay, so next quest is to find the thing that actually fails.
Yes. And this is not going to lead us there because it's just going to... I'm going to hit continue. Ooh. Oh, we waited too long. Our socket has timed out.
Yeah, that happens.
That's yes. Different.
Yes. So you know what? I think print debugging to the rescue here, because what we can do is, especially since this seems to not happen to all articles, but only some of them. Maybe we can just print every of the JSONs that we get. Can we? I'm not even sure.
Maybe. What does our worker do? So within our, is it within our Git articles?
Right, so it initializes a list of articles, and then it maps over IDs. Okay, so if I remember correctly, first we ask for just the IDs of the top articles, and then we ask for each article one by one. And so all of those will just go and take that article by ID, basically. Like a new JSON, which is something that we would want to print. The JSON that we get, we want to print before each time that we try to parse it. So ideally, we will have like JSON, and then error, and that's what we want to look like.
Right.
That's where we want to focus at.
Yes, and it looks like this parse article function is probably where we want to do that, right? So this is where we're saying, let's try to get the article that has that ID, which is going to return us this JSON. And then we pass the body to this parse article. Aha, parsed.
Yes.
That's what we want.
Yeah, maybe even before that, just the raw body of the JSON, so that we can just like copy it into a string. And just print that.
JSON string. Oops.
Yes.
And then we can also print the parsed JSON.
Okay. Yeah, and then after that article, we could say something like done, so we know which one
parsing.
is. Yes. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So run it. We'll have to recompile some stuff potentially.
Right. I'm just reminded, did we actually pass tests? I think we have tests for parsing articles. But I'm not sure. I think I just forgot to run tests afterwards after we did all the work there.
Yes.
So maybe that's already failing.
Right, because there is this JSON test. So yeah, we have like our top stories.
Yes.
And yeah, look, a real JSON there. Okay, so
let's it looks like it's starting, so let's see what happens there.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of parsing that's happened, and then
is anything actually done? Does it say done for anything?
Yeah. Next time I will use a higher contrast. Okay. But yeah, we are getting some. And okay, here's our error. Here's our unhandled exception, and we had finished parsing something. So right before our unimplemented, we got it done.
It might be okay. So there are two things. Either it's not actually in the parsing method, or there is some like race condition in the logging, where it says done parsing, but then something else, because I think we're using at least one worker to do this. I wonder if it's like happening in parallel or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's definitely weird. Oh, wait. Can you see if that is the actual article? Like it tells you some article in the message.
Yeah, so this is article ID 277 something, and the article before this is 277 something. I guess that's not.
It's not the same
useful
one.
Prefix. Yeah, no, it's not, because we've got
no. Go by the last few digits, and I think this is not the same article.
No, I think these are the ones that would have happened first. So 1334 by this Jane person. If we look up at the very top, no, they're not in here. Oh, there's one. ID 1334. Yeah, there it is.
Okay, so this tells me that we are actually not failing in the parsing itself.
Right.
But it's a list of articles. Do we ever do a list of articles anywhere?
We do. So from the worker, which is actually getting the thing. So we have this get article, right? The get article is getting the individual article.
Yes.
With this ID, and it's adding it to
a list of article.
A list of articles. And then
what happens to that list?
It gets mapped.
Okay.
Removing null titles. That's this is what happens when you just kind of blindly accept the null migration. So we have these null checks and then a not null check. So it's fine. And then we are sorting by ID.
Okay.
And then
can you show again it's a weird error message. It's something like unimplemented error of that thing. Unimplemented. Yeah. Okay.
Undefined behavior for message, list of articles.
Can you scroll to the end of the message? Because I think the thing that about build value is that it overrides. Oh, it just stops.
Yeah, it cuts it off because I think.
Yeah, you know what? Because it overrides the toString method of whatever you're doing, right? So I think that's actually really bad, because in this case, because it tries to the message probably says something important at the end, and it says like, okay, so this thing to JSON, blah blah blah, something. But because build value creates this huge string from the value, then we are not seeing the rest of the message. So
I wonder for debugging if we could just copy this ID and say where we get that list of top story IDs, if we just hard code it to this one so we can get just a single article.
Yes. But I think I have a hunch that it's not about the parsing of the article, because it looks like we already have the articles and we're just doing something with the list of them. And that's what's bad. So I wonder, one way to try it is to decrease I guess, maybe go to the generated article JSON and just change the toString to some. There's a method there that is toString, I'm pretty sure.
toString.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just like return, like go above the return and say just return blah.
I could return empty string.
Okay, cool.
And maybe that'll help with our message here.
Exactly.
That's the idea, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. Just because I don't know why
it will be hopefully regenerated anyway, but that's okay. So let's try and parse the thing again.
Go. Oh, I need to restart. It's already running.
Let's see.
So we get our done parsings for everything.
Nice,
go to the bottom. Oh, this is what you were looking for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. The contrast is even worse. But line 68 is where we're actually having our error.
Oh, cool. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah, so it gave us the top 10 or so. And line 68 from our worker. Hey, that's where our unimplemented error is coming from.
Ooh. But
nice. What's happening?
Okay, so we're sending a different message, but what is it?
So it's not actually a list then. So if you remember from down here, where was it? Because it's an array, not a list.
Well, it's the same thing in Dart, right?
It should be, but like, so I guess we have this. Oh, maybe it's null.
Is it
null.
maybe?
It's null safety. So I bet if we put this question mark here, we're gonna get a different behavior.
Oh yes. And then IDs complete will probably also need to you need to trickle down. Or maybe, I wonder if we just, you know what? Actually, I think we want to have a list of article non-nullable, like from the very top. Yeah. So here it's
we
there.
Need to, oh my gosh. Okay, this is going to be fun. Do we want to, I'm going to do, can I just do that? Is that going to work for me?
I don't know, man. I think I think like, so, okay, get article.
No, that's not going to work.
Can it get you null at any point, or will it just throw? Like, does it ever, this particular method that you're looking at, does it ever return null?
See, return parse article. We'll have to see what parse article does.
No, that just, oh, okay, that's a null.
And that's the...
Right.
So
but it's never returning null. I don't think it's ever returning null. I think it's just us trying to be like clever back then when there was no null safety. But I think we can just say, you know what, this is either throwing or returning a non-null article. So we can just, we can just remove this. See, this is why we last episode, and that's my fault. I was just going, you know what? Let's just use the Dart migrate tool, and I think I just said yes to everything, and now we are in trouble. So
yeah. So the built value library, and so that this is within the package, says that it's nullable. So I can't.
Okay.
Make
So you
parse
can.
article.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So we could either check for null here and throw. If article is null, then just throw, because what's going on there. Or if we want to be more robust, we could say null and then check for null somewhere else and be like, oh wait,
what do we want to throw?
I don't know, skip it. Yeah, let's throw. Who cares?
What sort of thing? What's the right exception for having a null?
Ideally we would want to have something like a special error, like an exception that says something like deserialization failed. But I just say let's do either state error or argument error, or I don't know, state error.
Let's do state error. Null article.
Yes.
Let's do that for.
Okay.
Just for now. We'll add it to do.
Yes. Yes. And assign it to yourself, please.
Okay. I can.
No. I'm just kidding. But yeah, this is, by the way, something that. Hey, I see that. Oh no. Okay.
No, it's me. It's me.
Okay. I saw Filip. I was like, hey, dude, not cool. Yeah.
Okay. What were you saying?
Nothing. Okay. So yeah. So we are now. We can then say that we are definitely doing article, not question mark, non-null article here. No null article there.
Why is it still?
Yeah, it's weird because it shouldn't.
It's getting so the dynamic.
Dynamic?
Well, so see how it's saying that. I don't know if you can see the hover here. So it's casting the article as the return from the deserialize, which is a nullable article.
Yeah. But
so,
if you say article article equals null, I think the flow analysis should say that this is okay.
Yeah. Do I have to?
Wait. Don't. Let's not do the work for the compiler here. I think we should. Can you restart the analysis server, please?
Restart analysis server.
Is it better?
Analyzing. It's still working.
Okay, maybe it's just slow.
Yeah.
But this is a perfect example of where flow. Wait, what?
It's still saying
we're throwing.
I would have thought you were right, except that I think var might not.
I think that's. Oh, no. No, actually, okay, yeah, I get it now. Because standard serializer deserialize always returns article question mark.
Yes.
Well, still, I think it should say, we now know that it's not, and it's a local field. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Also, but this is really weird because you know what? We are saying in the function that the function returns article, non-nullable article, right?
Yes.
And this should either say that's an error then, right? Or I don't know. Why is it not telling us, hey, you're trying to return article that I think is nullable? to in a method that returns article that's non-nullable. You know what I mean?
If I do that, for example, now it's going to give us an error.
Yeah, that's yes. But I just don't understand. Like we have the signature of our method is article.
Yes.
Weird.
Oh, my failed attempt at search replace maybe messed things up. Let me try to back that out.
Okay.
Because I noticed it had a capital A article here, and that's not correct as a variable name.
Yeah.
And so I've reset that to the status in Git. Let's put that back to there. So we'll still have that returned there, but at least let's restart the analysis server again. Because
okay, I see a lot of problems there. What does it say for problems?
Those are mostly to-dos.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so see, we have a bunch of to-dos. I don't know what this one is. JSON test. It's more of a warning than an error. So we'll leave that be for the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. The rest of these are just to-dos.
Good. So maybe we fixed it.
Okay. Yeah, we might fix it by doing this work.
So it doesn't sell. Why? I think I don't. So does it say any problem here? I mean, right. So we are parsing. Can you go to where we are using parse article? Because I think we haven't finished the whole. Oh, you're over there.
Yeah. So I split it.
Right. So I think we're returning a future. Yes.
We definitely want that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So get article is returning an actual article.
Cool.
So that means that we don't want this to be nullable, and we don't want that to be nullable.
Yes. I love this, by the way. I like that we're, I like this direction where we are losing nulls more than adding nulls.
Yes. That means we can also lose these because we've changed this to a not nullable. The title still could be null, and that's fine. We can do that check.
Yes.
We can get rid of that one. And I believe there should be another one here.
Uh-huh.
And then the same... No, okay. So we're returning a list of non-nullable articles.
Sweet.
From get articles.
Sweet.
And it doesn't appear that there are any problems.
Okay. Can you show me where we're using get article? Oh yeah.
Yes. So this articles is a
now we're sending it.
Okay.
And so the other part, wherever we are receiving the sent articles, we should.
And that was where we had there was an if message. Was it in here?
I think it's not in the worker. I think it's in the whatever is sending those workers to do their job. Is it?
It's part of the worker, yeah. So here's the if list article. I suppose we could have just added a question mark here, but like the right thing to do is to make sure that our nulls are going to the right places, right?
Yes.
But this is where that was failing. This is where that unimplemented. So it was falling through both of these if statements and hitting this unimplemented error.
Yes. Let's try it. I think
let's try it.
I have a good feeling about this.
Okay. We're launching. This is really just a continuation of migrating to null safety, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Which is great.
We said mission accomplished last time, but no. We'll probably be hunting other errors like for years.
Yes. I'm sure we'll fix this one, and then like we'll go to the favorite screen or something, and that one will break.
Yes. Yes. Well, the proper way to do it again would be last time when we were going through the null safety is probably just spending a lot more time actually changing everything where it needs to be changed. It doesn't, because like one thing about this is that we're sending things through send ports. I think that is easily like a problem, because if you're sending something to another isolate, then you have to cast on both sides. So null safety and like flow analysis can help you there. Oh wait, everything works? No way.
It works.
That's amazing. Yes. Cool.
Okay.
I'm really proud of you and me as well.
And
this was great.
Us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to review a little bit what we did for a second.
Yes.
So I want to look at these things. And this split view is terrible. Hold on. Let's fix this. So in the worker, we made sure that get article only returns non-nullable articles. We made sure the get single article is doing the same thing with, well, I guess get article was that, but then the get article list is doing the same thing, handling non-nullable articles all the way down. And I don't know why all of this stuff changed. Generated code is fun. We added a bunch of print debugging, which I can remove before we commit. But we made sure that when it was parsed, because the parser from what is this from? The built value. The parser says that sometimes it can return null because that's a thing. And so we said, make sure that parse article only returns non-nullable articles. And that's all we did, really, to get it to work. We spent a lot of time debugging to figure it out, but it's really those three functions that we updated to be definitely defined articles.
Yes. And you know what helped a lot? I think the breakpoint was where we actually saw the error message. So it's weird.
Well,
like
it was really when we overrided the toString here.
Yeah.
That's when we saw the actual error come through.
Yeah. Which is bad, to be honest. I think like how can you expect someone to know that there is like the rest of the message below that huge thing, right? So like I guess next time, if there's one thing that you should take from this is next time you see a huge error message, it's possible that a bunch of it is actually hidden. If it's big, the most important part may be at the very bottom of it, and it may not be printed, especially if it comes from a separate isolate. And so, like do override toStrings, do whatever you can to actually read the whole message there.
Yeah.
This was a perfect storm of generated code that generates a lot of like a huge toString from the object, and being executed on a separate isolate. So the error message had to go through, a send port as well.
Yep.
Anyway,
yep.
I'm really glad that we're done. Cool.
We are. We got it working. And if I click on news stories, we should be able to also have that work. Watch everything totally not work now. I had to refresh it. But news stories, I believe, is the exact same implementation as top stories. Yeah, so that one works fine as well.
Cool.
And our favorites, I believe, should also...
No, they're not.
Nope. Is it loading? Are we waiting? Do I want to go to settings? No, our menu is just not working.
Oh,
Did we crash?
sweet.
Did we crash?
Maybe we crashed. Also, the other stories should have been loaded on like as you swipe to the next one. So I think we still have some work to do. But at least we're correctly parsing everything.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, is there anything else we wanted to do today?
I think let's call it a day. I think I'm glad that we did this. I'm glad that it was like a non-scripted debugging session with all the ups and downs and all the emotions. I'm happy.
Yeah, I think this was fun. It started as a story of how I failed to find the error, and in the process of telling the story, we found the error. So it turned out great.
Cool. Great. Well, so thanks for watching, everyone, and hope to see you next time on another episode. Please let us know in the comments if you still want us to tackle with this beast of a app, and or if there are any other interesting things that we should be tackling next.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone.